Welcome back to the LEC studio. Today's schedule is packed with action as some of the best teams so far in summer clash on the Rift. We are ready to give you some big desk energy. That is myself, Daniel, Drakos, and Froskurinn. Euphoria plus Sjokz, we've dubbed it.
Yeah, probably the strongest product we could possibly make. But if we did, people would never watch anything else. So we have to,
phase it out.
Take it down a notch.
Also, if you missed it yesterday, you can now check out our music video of Diplo and Side Piece's song "On My Mind" on LOL Esports YouTube page, because you know what? It's just going to be stuck in your head forever, so you might as well just listen to it again.
Also on Reddit until the mods wake up, so
Indeed,
good times.
Yes. Well, yesterday we got some great games and spicy picks, all culminating in an epic clash between Fnatic and Mad Lions. Wow, that was an absolute treat to watch.
It was such a pleasure from the draft to the early game to the very final moments. This series, or this single game, absolutely delivered. For a long time, it felt like Fnatic were in absolute control, but Mad Lions held their ground and turned it around when it mattered most.
And this is kind of the narrative coming in. You know, the rest of the world is looking at the LEC and it's like, yeah, you guys are good, but you've only got two teams, G2 and Fnatic. Well, guess what? Mad Lions said, not today. We are also in that conversation. So I think across the board with Mad Lions win, yeah, it's just a best of one, but it speaks volumes to what's to come for the LEC and how exciting it is that more of our teams are showing up when it counts.
And it should also inform the lens through which we're going to look at today and the next couple of weeks. There we see the Mad Lions being very, very happy. Is someone going to give some love to the small lion?
This is my favorite part.
Shadow goes like directly to the lion. Just ignores his teammates.
My roommate's like, who do I get to hug? Shadow's like, I'm on the lion, bro. Go talk to the support.
Got to work with Shadow on that caster ad for the laundry detergent. He like quickly became my favorite player. He's so full of joy. He was constantly smiling. Like we had to stop and be like, you're smiling too much. We need to do retakes. Stop smiling. Stop laughing. Stop having fun.
This is serious. So as I was saying, I think this is the way we have to look at kind of the rest of the games today and in the next couple of weeks. The fact that it isn't just two teams at the top, but there is such a big midfield of teams that are able to contest for those top spots. Not in the least, Rogue. Rogue are now alone in first place because Fnatic was not able to keep their winning streak alive. And they've also just been evolving and taking claim to that #1 spot.
Rogue have good macro, but what does that actually mean? Specifically their vision game, and that's what this play really shows off. It's not just about placing wards and denying wards, it's about understanding the information that you give and what the pressure means when you don't give that information by showing up. And that is what is making Rogue such a talented team on top of their individual members stepping up.
And I think it's the individual members that I really want to highlight because it's not just a macro anymore. We've seen smart Rogue before. Now we're seeing smart and aggressive Rogue. Rogue that can show us both sides of the coin, and that is pretty much mandatory for any top team here in the LEC.
Is that a onesie? Is that like a...
No,
I think they just
their uniforms look like pajamas. It's a lot of print. Like it's a bold move to pull off.
On the chair. Anyway, so that actually brings us to a very interesting discussion. When we throw up the standings, we'll see the actual top 3, but nothing here seems like it's locked in place by any stretch of the imagination, right? So disregarding what we actually see, give me your motivation for your top 3.
Here's the thing, is I think that I cannot in good conscience take G2 Esports out of the top 3.
What?
I know that they have been playing like absolute fools, but
Didi, right now?
I have this flashback to when we watched them lose to Mad Lions and we're like, this is the most likely chance Fnatic will ever have to win a final. G2 do not look as good. And then they showed up and they 3-0'd, so I can never doubt them. I feel like G2 always have to be a part of the conversation.
Right now?
Yes, I get it. They're absolute clowns right now.
Who are your other two then?
Well, at that point, I think it's Fnatic and Mad Lions. I don't believe in Rogue.
You're such a safeguard. No. Ignore him. The thing is, I understand what Daniel is saying. He's like, G2, they always win. I would look like a fool. But right now, I don't think G2 are quite there yet. It shows that there's still a lot of rust. When they are picking up their wins, they're picking up their wins over Schalke, who are clearly one of the weakest teams, if not the weakest team. And they had to do it through mechanical brute force. I think it's Mad Lions, Rogue, and Fnatic. Right now, those are our 3 cleanest teams.
Which, if we agree with, is also reflected in the standings in the top 3 teams, which is a really crazy spot to be because normally it's really hard to make sense of what week 1 and week 2 are going to look like for actual standings. It doesn't always feel like it means the most. And so while I will hold on to the fact, to the belief that G2 will come back, I think Frost makes a good point that these are the 3 best performing teams right at this moment.
But this is why it's amazing, because you have your benefits of the doubt, which are G2 Fnatic. I still think that Origin are in there, but the fans might say differently. But now we have SK showing up, Vitality showing up, Rogue being undefeated right now, and the Mad Lions being so explosive explosive and taking down Fnatic. That's why Europe's so exciting, and that's what I want our viewers to understand. This is not a two-team league.
It isn't, and I also think it gets reflected in the level of the games, especially that Fnatic Mad Lions game yesterday was also of high quality. One fun fact is that Vander and Rekkles haven't died yet, so who's going to die first?
Look, I'm not going to lie. When they told me the stat again...
Rogue plays G2, and Fnatic plays at the end of the day.
Even if you win that game, you're dying. Like, G2, that's like the whole thing. Like, even if we go down, we're taking you down with us.
And I mean, the thing is, we just don't know what Rekkles is going to play, right? Because he's been kind of busting out a deeper and deeper champion pool. And maybe that puts him on something immobile today that he could die on. I didn't believe that he didn't die in that Soraka game after some of those incredibly messy team fights from Fnatic, but somehow he's still deathless.
And I think that's actually the cool part of the stat. Not just that we have deathless people with massive KDAs, but the fact that Rekkles is doing it on champions like Syndra, on Soraka. When a time ago he didn't. And Vander, we always knew he was a smart support, but now he's a mechanically very gifted support on top of it. So Vander is playing out of his mind, hyper-aggressive, and still deathless. I'm just excited about that.
Yeah, me too. Working fantastically in that rogue bot lane. Now, moving on to Super Fantasy. If you haven't already, it is time to start your very own team at the LEC Super Fantasy. You can build a team out of your favorite players, but that's not maybe the best thing to do. And compete against other fans every match day at lec.gg/fantasy. So yeah, you could pick your favorite players, but that's maybe not the strategy to go for.
G2 are a trap. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, like normally the strategy for me would be draft G2 players. If we'd come into this season, would you not have drafted a G2 player?
No, because G2, they int and then they also win the game. They're not gonna, it's a numbers game. You go for the team that has the easy, okay, this is what you do. Softest schedule. You tune it up, you say who's facing all the weak teams. Those are the players you want. They're gonna stack it up. Upset, you're gonna grab them every single time. That guy loves stats. You check his stats every year.
And speaking of the playing all the weak teams, Rogue's easy schedule looks like it has boosted some of these names to the top of the list.
Well, these are the players with the most points so far. Larssen, Hans, Sama, Rekkles, Upset, and Vander. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that honestly at this point, not surprising to not see a G2 member there right now, and just impressive that I think despite Origin's weak start, that Upset just always continues to be the top of this fantasy leaderboard. And Alfari is the only name that the metrics must be very different for LEC Fantasy than they are for the stats that we look at, because otherwise I think Alfari just has to be on everyone's list.
I think it's telling that it's mostly ADCs right now, so it's probably like CS, KDA, participation.
Yeah, we totally know what we're talking about. Now, a very popular player on Super Fantasy is indeed Alfari, and he's looking to finally win that LEC title.
My motivation as a player, since I've joined LEC, has always been to win a split. And it's still the same right now. I really just want to do that. It would be so great to be like the first team aside from Alliance, I think it was, or Elements, to, you know, take down G2 or Fnatic in a final. And that's my goal. That's what I really want to achieve. I want to just be like a special player and have like a special team and be a good, like the best team in Europe for once.
Alfari sounding very confident there, but we need to talk Twitch chat because we sent out a poll and you guys had one job. Confirm Alfari as the best top laner in the LEC. And I get it, the mistakes happen. Maybe you slipped multiple times, but I'm here to show you the light of our Lord and Savior Alfari. So roll the numbers, because we're going to start with them. Alfari is the highest in virtually every measured stat. Forward percentage, first. CSD at 10, first. Goal difference at 10. There's too many stats that wouldn't fit on the graphics. So to put it in perspective, Alfari has forged a free Executioner's Calling by 10 minutes. He's denied you a wave and a half that you would have gotten versus any other top laner, and he does it on your side of the lane while being one of only 2 top laners with no solo deaths. The other being Cabo Shard, but he's a Scion 1-trick, so he doesn't mess up. Alfari is what peak consistency looks like. You have eyes, so use them. While other godlike top laners in our region have their int moments, this guy stands stolid. His only crime is not getting bodied by the Shiat world. And yeah, Wonder and Bwippos of the LECs are bringing you those fresh picks, those pop-off performances, the Janus, the Zax. Alfari's still versatile. He's pulling out Gangplank and Aatrox spans left and right, then pumping out 4K damage on Ornn in team fights. You can't ban him out, and you can't ignore him. We said it last split, and we're gonna repeat it now. Alfari continues to sit on top, and today we'll see if Bwipo and Fnatic can tear him down in our Alienware Match of the Week.
The game is getting faster. It's getting scarier. It is about balancing on the knife's edge and being willing to put yourself in the firing line.
Here comes Xerxes.
And now looking for a wraparound.
The showstopper delivers to Origin's waiting arms, and the Zumi is bye-bye. Teleport is absolutely questionable, but it will go in. Oh, LEC with the goal! That was such a good rocket grab.
He just knocked it out of his hands.
The individual players on teams like G2 and Fnatic force everybody on the enemy team to make constant decisions all the time. And when they have a lapse of judgment and they decide to join for a team fight, win the team fight, that lapse in judgment of after the team fight, what do we do now? In that moment, we've already decided.
Now the fight really begins because there's the double kill coming out. Hylissang's going to take an inhibitor tower though.
The thing about Fnatic, the way to beat them is to just purely play discipline. You need to play the map smart against these players or they will punish you. So I think it's just having a strategic mind and knowing where you need to do to get the win.
So Origin's like, okay, we have to commit to this foot push now. FLICKR lands.
Hylissang, you have to go down here. Upset takes the kill, and Hylissang was just a little bit too greedy, a little bit too deep.
I just don't feel like they have that guy in Origin that calls for that unorthodox or a bit more risky play. And why so many times they just end up in a situation where nothing is happening, they're waiting for the right moment, but a team like ourselves just give very few right moments.
Nukeduck already almost down, he gets caught out, and now Upset's the next target, they're just dead. Origin can't do anything about this, they just get swept off the map. Fnatic able to take 3, only lose 1, and now can push in for an inhibitor.
Their strength can also be their weakness, and they can tend to play too aggressive, and it can definitely also backfire.
Look at the flank. A lot of damage. Sleepy Trouble Bubble gets missed. Gold card is prime. Gets thrown out. The slam dunk could stop.
Origin is constantly playing second fiddle. They seem to be missing that key something that allows them to bridge the gap.
We have been improving, and hopefully it will take us far.
Fnatic will top the table, undefeated.
Welcome to the conversation.
100% Fnatic.
They have done it.
Seen OG put their foot on the gas pedal, and now we just never, ever want them to stop.
Well, Fnatic and OG fighting to keep their spots in that top 3. And I love the storytelling in this video about the kind of the unorthodox decisions in game versus following the plan, which is something we have kind of blamed Origin for. But when they are playing their plan, they can also do it aggressively. We've seen it versus G2 just last week.
It's not boring. I know that's the word that gets thrown around a lot. It's just Origin's philosophy. Playing discipline, playing the map, playing the waves, making sure that you're minimizing risk and mistake. Whereas Fnatic on the other side, as Reckless put it, they have that guy that can see that miracle play, that can find that snipe on a Baron and turn a game around.
And it makes it so difficult for these high-stakes games because the later and later you go, the higher and higher the stakes become. If you're not absolutely smashing, you must always have in the back of your head, is this the Baron that Reckless takes from us? Is this the team fight that they turn around? Is this the random inhibitor that Hylissang gets uncontested on an 0-10 Trundle support? Like, these are the things that I think you have to think about when we talk about a Fnatic OG matchup.
And Fnatic yesterday got a taste of their own medicine versus the Mad Lions. They lost that Elder Drake. They lost that game. So they're going to be poised not to let that happen again.
And here's the thing. This is why I think it changes. You know, normally when we have kind of these matches of the week, it's just about the history behind the teams and the fact that these are considered kind of 2 of the top 3 teams that we have, but right now it's unstable footing. It's the fact that Fnatic just dropped to Mad Lions. It's the fact that while Origin got their victory over G2, they've otherwise looked very shaky. And so this is not just Fnatic versus Origin. This is Fnatic and Origin versus the community. Everyone is waiting for these guys to fall, and you have teams like Rogue and Mad Lions who are right there just waiting for any little mistake.
And one man who absolutely has to turn around some of that public perception right now is Nemesis in the mid lane. And going up against Nukeduck is never an easy challenge, but after the fumble that he made yesterday in that final fight, I respect taking those risks. But when they turn against you, so does fan perception. So he has to play a lot smarter today and a lot cleaner.
Absolutely. So today you can clear your schedule. Who are you kidding? You don't have anything else to do.
We're all stuck
We're going to be closing out the week with some epic matchups. And I love that we work towards that match of the week because we just had the conversation about how that midfield is so incredibly stacked and really anyone can sneak into that top 3. And all these games matter for that race towards Worlds and the playoffs.
Listen, some days we get some real stinkers. This is not one of them. This day is a full banger. Even in the Schalke versus Misfits, which are two bottom-of-the-table teams, you still don't really know who's going to 100% win that. You should say that Misfits are probably the favorite, but the fact is that the league is very competitive and the level across the board has increased. Our macro understanding, even on our bottom-tier teams, the SKs, the Vitalities, has increased dramatically.
And I want to see exactly what happens out in Game 4. Vitality Mad is interesting, but I'm just looking at Rogue G2 because this is finally a wake-up call for G2 after that sloppy game yesterday where we get to see their full strength. And for Rogue, this feels like their first real hurdle to take down another top team.
That's the thing. It's super easy for Rogue to be like, we're undefeated. But if you look at their caliber of opponents, like, you should be undefeated right now. Like, let's see how you measure against one of the big boys.
Absolutely. Let's see how that plays out. But of course, SK is also riding very, very high. They've been the surprise team so far. And as they get ready to face off against XL, Drakos is going to explain why Trick is spamming Set in the jungle.
Well, it's not kind of the sexy answer that I think people are looking for, but it's the honest one. And it's because he doesn't really require a ton of mechanical skill, but he still delivers a ton of very high results. Kind of one of the most unexpected curveballs in week 1 of the LEC threw our way was the popularity of Set, and specifically Set jungle. We knew about the Graves, the Trundle, the Nidalee, but the Set was something special, and it was a little bit out of left field. Now, his flexibility in draft is incredibly powerful, and alongside a freshly optimized rune page, Set is taken to the upper end of the jungle tier list. And while he's definitely not a Graves or a Trundle, he certainly cannot be underestimated. So, how does Set work? Well, friends, to the surprise of probably actually no one, Set jungle follows the same trend as Set top and Set support. He walks at you. But here's the big difference. Set jungle walks very fast. Now, this rune page and early build is tailor-built to make Set the fastest brawler on the Rift. It's important to note, you're going to want that chilling smite that you see on your screen. You're going to proc with approach velocity in the inspiration tree, which also procs your Nimbus cloak, which you can further then increase with your Hex Flash or Real Flash. A quick use of the 1-2 punch and a Phase Breaker will also provide an immediate phase rush proc, so you can continue to zoom at your opponents. Let's compare. Here is the lonely, normal Set. He's slow. He might get close, but he's never able to sustain the push. And when we compare him instead to the new jungled Set, he's the absolute Chad. He's fast as light. He's effortlessly moving through that river to find these plays. Once he gets on top of you, there is absolutely no getting away from him. There is no jungle Set more Chad than our boy Xerxes. So as we take a look at this play on the bottom side, we can see how he just smashes through G2. The important part of this clip and playing Set jungle in general is to be willing to use your summoner spells, to be willing to flash in aggressively, to use that smite to hit champions and not camps, maximizing the value of Nimbus Cloak to make up for Set's natural shortcomings. Because as you see here, Set, once he gets close, is still incredibly powerful. Of course, once you're out of the early game, you get to play my favorite Set minigame, Attack the Flank. As you see here, Xerxes finds an opportunity, dunks down, and single-handedly wins his team the game. You and Solo Cube will also want to look for that perfect suplex. So, to recap, for anyone looking to play this champion at home, it's pretty simple. You need a rune page and you need to walk at him. That is Nimbus Cloak. You're going to take a look at this one. You're going to print screen this, because I'm not going to tell you what they all are, but they make you go very fast. Combat stats, you don't care. You just want to go speedy. Meantime, your build path, it's a similar story. Combat stats, not as important. It's about the Swifties. It's about the blue smite, the dead man's plate. After that, it's kind of up to you. I like Gargoyle Stone Plate, so that's why we put here, but you can go for Warmogs. You can also look for Righteous Glory if you really want to go too far on the fast trope, but when in doubt, the most important thing to note is that right now in the meta, I think we can all safely agree, just build a Death Stance if you're uncertain.
Wow, I thought you were never going to sit down. That was very impressive.
I'll be honest, we're new to the walk along the wall while you're also here. It's like, do I look at you? Do I look at the camera? Do I pretend you're not here? Do we have a conversation?
So with all that, Frosk, is Set absolute S tier right now?
I don't know if he's absolute S tier.
Or LEC junglers, let me put it that way. Because
I think he makes some of our junglers S or look S tier. Because the thing is I think that Trundle, I personally value. Yes. I think there's a lot more versatility there. I think one of the power of Set is how flexible he is. He can go top, he can go support, he can now go into the jungle position. And obviously, his kit's probably pretty busted if all you need is movement speed to make him into a race car to make it work. And the fact that you can build anything on him, I think is pretty ridiculous.
So he's S tier.
Yeah, I think he offers unique strengths in the draft, and while you always would want like the S tier, true S tiers, which I think is kind of the Graves and the Trundle right now, if you have to settle for a Set, you're never sad because he does so much for your other lanes by kind of keeping things under wraps until the last
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to get at, because he fits in a lot of compositions, he can do a lot of things, and he's very versatile and also a flex pick. But we've seen it in the hands of SK before, and to get more insight on SK's split so far, LEC is joined by Twitch chat's favorite player, Crowny.
Hey guys, welcome to my smoothie bar for the Live Like a Pro Baker interview. I have Crownshot with me today. Thank you very much, Crownshot, for joining me.
Happy to be here.
And happy to have you. And I talked to Jessis last week about this new dynamic that SK has and also the new coaching staff you guys brought. So tell me about Inner Flame, Jessis, all these people who showed up for Summer Split and helped you guys succeed.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like a breath of fresh air, pretty much, like a fresh start. And yeah, even though we only changed like one player, you could say, and one of them swapped roles, but the team feels pretty new.
Yeah, and do you guys train differently? I mean, you have more support staff now to help you guys.
Oh yeah, it just feels like the process is more, everything just feels more connected between each other, so it just flows more smoothly, I would say.
It shows, really, even in game. I mean, the clean macro we saw from you guys yesterday and even the week before that. Do you feel it in game that you guys are maybe getting better than last split?
Yeah, I would say we are. We just play more concise and clear, I guess. We have more clear game plans. We play as more of a team now. Yeah, it certainly feels better than spring for sure.
Yeah, and I hear that some of you guys consider SK already has maybe becoming playoffs contender. Would you agree on that based on the way you guys played and the way the other teams have been playing in the LEC?
Well,
it's early.
It's a bit early to tell, yeah, but I think if we keep this level up and keep improving, I think we can be, for sure, a good team, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a bit early to tell.
A bit early still. Week 2, we'll see that. About Excel today, you guys are taking the game, right?
Yeah, we are.
All right, good prediction, solid. Thank you very much, Crownshot, for the interview.
Thank you.
And back to you, Sjokz.
Thank you. What I want to know is that Poro wearing a crown made out of like palm leaves? Did you see that? Or was it just a plant that was behind? Nobody was looking at that.
I was looking at Crownshot's face during the interview.
I was also listening, but I was looking at everything, you know. Laura looked great, the set looks great, and there was a Poro with like...
It's okay. I tune out when I hear someone bring up Excel too sometimes right now, Sjokz. It's difficult. You know, you can find anything else to look at.
Now, to get into kind of the content of the interview, though, it was asked about the whole kind of support staff, and it does look like a lot of the teams that have invested so much in that support staff, Vitality comes to mind as well, are picking the fruits of that labor already at the beginning of the split.
And it's, I think, really incredible when I look at how much SK has turned around with the roster changes that they've opted to make, because a single player swapping roles and another player coming in to play mid lane, I didn't expect this team to be a complete turnaround. When I looked at this on paper, I did not think it would be enough for SK. So when we add in the context of additional support staff to bolster that, suddenly the picture starts to become more clear, and we can give a bit more credence to the results we've seen from SK so far.
So I'm super happy to see Zazie join. I think he is showcasing why he had a lot of hype kind of built around him before making his debut on LEC. I think that SK's success is a couple of things that are overlapping. Everything that you just talked about, but also the fact the players that they did retain. We already knew that they were going to take Crownshot. I think Trick was kind of the big question mark. And as the meta has shifted and we've seen champions like Set come back in, Trick seems to have found kind of that spark again where he's being very successful with how this jungle meta works. If we swap back to having a more aggressive jungle style, I'm curious if SK can also then change gears and continue to be successful.
And I think that's going to be the question with kind of all the teams that are doing so well at the beginning of the split. How well can you deal when the circumstances change? I also would like to highlight Genax. It isn't that easy to just change lanes, and I know we've seen some successful examples, most recently in the past, so we didn't maybe think too much about it, but it is impressive how he keeps improving, and yesterday also bringing out that new pick, the Volibear, and carrying his team with it.
I do want to give credit to Genax. I think the teams are a little bit slow, in my opinion, on picking up the Volibear. This bear slaps. I think he's a bit of a problem. That said, though, I still think it's kind of hard to pass judgment on Genax and kind of where he ranks into the top laners, especially if you just have kind of that big standout performance on the Volibear. Otherwise, we know his Aatrox is good. His Volibear, he landed on some people. He had a really rough Karma game, so I'm not totally sold on Genax. In fact, I think he might be the weakest player of SK, but if Genax is your weakest player and he has a performance like that on Volibear, that tells you why SK are strong.
True.
And I think at the end of the day, yeah, even if the 9-1 scoreline for Genax isn't indicative of his strength as an individual, it is indicative of the strength of SK Gaming. And the fact that they took down Misfits so cleanly, I think is such a strong look for a team that, let's be honest, struggled to get the 4 wins that they did in spring.
Yeah, and now the tagline we saw here on the screen a bit earlier, can SK make playoffs? I think all 3 of us are immediately going to say they actually should.
Ooh, I don't know if should. I like the fire, though, but I do think it's possible.
Yeah.
Like, I still have to see slightly more from SK because I need kind of the track record of the consistency. I like the fact, like what Crowning was talking about, their macro game has improved very steadily, but almost everyone's in the LEC has, outside of Sjokz and Excel. So I'm like, yeah, if SK showed up like this and everyone else stayed the same, I'm like, yeah, they should make playoffs. But because Vitality are rising up, Rogue are looking really hot, even Misfits have kind of their pop-off moments, I'm like, okay, I like they have the potential there, but I'm not ready to sell it.
Okay.
I think coming in this strong was really good for SK. I think having the start of the split is really important. Week 1 and week 2 already looking very good for them, but sustaining that is very, very difficult. We've seen a lot of teams really fumble. Misfits in spring are a good example where after the rough week 1, 7-win streak, it felt like everything was coming together. They could not keep it together as we got closer to playoffs, started to drop down, and we saw a very different look.
But here's the difference between Misfits and SK. I think SK are a smarter team and they play better together. Misfits don't look like a cohesive team compared to SK, but I think individually they have better players in specific roles, like that mid lane with Febiven. And so it's kind of like the power of the players versus the power of the teamwork. And in the comp, when they ran into each other, Misfits with that comp were never going to be able to outmuscle SK. SK played the map and just cleaned house.
Yeah, that they did yesterday. Now a positive story for the first weeks for SK Gaming and quite the opposite for XL. We are nearing the end of the 2-year plan and they just started 0-4. What's going on?
I will say that while it feels like we've been watching XL, we're like, you guys had so long, we're still struggling here. According to them on the Twitter, they're like, guys, we are only 25% through the way of our path. I'm like, Worlds is coming up. Like, no team wants to be like, yeah, we're 25% in, but we're probably going to miss Worlds because that looks like the track record that they're on.
I'm just honestly very disappointed because the thing is I don't want to hold it against the individual players on this lineup, but I do want to say to the org that we expect more. I think it's safe to say these players are playing their first games on the stage. It's very high pressure, and I don't want to like condemn anyone this early on in the split, but we need to see more. And for these players, it's not their 2-year plan. A lot of these guys are just now joining the roster. But
it's
for
a
the
rebuild.
org, yeah, they're rebuilding again, and it's like, how many rebuilds are we going to need to see before you strike gold or find a system that can actually build a roster that's going to be cohesive?
But the thing is that if you bring over a guy like Youngbuck, and it feels like he kind of was the crowning jewel on that piece, now you have 2 very fresh players to work with Special and Cries. Like, theoretically, you've created a blank slate that now Youngbuck can build onto. We still see really strong level 1s that we know are probably blueprints from Youngbuck. I still like kind of some of the issues in drafts. It's execution based. So I'm like, it's a rebuild. It's not the right time to be rebuilding, but what do you expect? Like, they're not going to win.
I actually have kind of different vision on it because to me it's not completely a rebuild because a rebuild would kind of give you more to play with in terms of the time that you need because they know Special. They've worked with Special, right? Cries is the only one that is completely new for XL in that regard. And you still have a Cadril who is by this point very, very experienced, right? And should be able, probably is calling a lot in game as well. And you have that fantastic bot lane. So 0-4 is just too harsh and it's just not cutting it for me.
I think Cadril is kind of the name that I want to pick out. Like, we've had Cadril on desk. He's super eloquent, obviously a very intelligent player. Watching him in game, though, I don't feel that. I feel that Cadril, even when he has a winning aggressive jungle matchup, he's not abusing it. It almost felt like when we were kind of in that Karthus meta, that Cadril was insulated or hidden a bit because he could just sit back and farm. And then maybe you saw that idea of like, oh, this is the intelligent Excel about playing the map, and then mid-game would fall apart. Now that he needs to be a bit more proactive in the jungle, it doesn't matter what his jungle matchup is, he's losing to everyone. And I think something's happening with the communication synergy building there that we're not seeing the Cadril that we expect to see.
And I don't want to, once again, it feels I don't want to go too hard on this roster because I think that obviously the players are the ones who always catch the flack here. But I think that I'm right now I'm missing the likes of Expect. And Mickey, you know, up and down, but he had his good moments. And for me, Expect was clearly much more core to the team than it may have looked on the outside because he was the one who was pushing forward. He was the one that I felt like had the excellent synergy with Cadril, and that's just not there yet with Cries and Special.
All right, we want to see a bit more from XL, and today's schedule is quite simply stacked. It all begins with that first game. The surging SK look for a 2-0 week against XL. Let's hit the rift.